5 projects are reshaping Intown Atlanta, but a lot of buyers are watching the wrong signals. Today, we're looking at 5 projects reshaping the neighborhoods, trails, and transit across the city. Atlanta context. Why these projects exist. There's a version of Atlanta that's trying to grow up and make better choices at the same time. And I think you can feel that if you spend a weekend walking in town right now. You see more people, more cranes, more trail activity, and a real conversation starting to emerge among buyers. Whether Atlanta is building for the way people want to live or adding more buildings is becoming one of the defining questions shaping the city's growth. The city surpassed about 530,000 residents in 2025 after growing almost 2% per year over the last 5 years. The larger 11-county region is near 5.3 million people and still growing. So that puts pressure on a core that, for a long time, wasn't set up to handle this kind of growth. The bigger story is that the core is trying to work better, which means the city is more walkable, more connected, more livable for someone who wants to leave the house, walk out the front door, and get somewhere without depending on a car for every single thing. That thread runs through every project in this video, and that's why they're showing us what kind of city Atlanta is trying to become. And stay with me through the South Downtown. That one is getting less attention, and it may be the most important one for a buyer who wants to be ahead of where things are moving. But let's discuss the market first. Right about now, it's more patient than it was during the frenzy years. Buyers have more room to breathe than they had a few years ago. But pricing still changes block by block, and condition matters. Downtown does not feel like Grant Park. Ormwood Park does not feel like Summerhill. I'll walk you through soft ranges as we go, but my advice is the same as it's always been. Don't fall in love with a price point until you've walked the block. So with that context, we're starting downtown, where the biggest single project in this video is already moving. Centennial Yards, downtown's biggest bet. Think about the corner by Mercedes-Benz Stadium on an afternoon. Not a game day, nor a concert night, just the middle of the week. For a long time, that area didn't have much life outside of events. You had parking decks, open pavement, and space that only worked when 60,000 people were coming in for something. So that's what Centennial Yards is trying to fix. It's about 50 acres near the stadium and State Farm Arena, and it's being turned into a mixed-use district with housing, hotels, retail, restaurants, office space, entertainment, and public gathering areas. The goal is a place that works on any afternoon, not just before a Falcons game or a concert. And this is not just a plan anymore. The Mitchell, which is the first ground-up residential tower at Centennial Yards, opened in 2025. Hotel Phoenix followed later that year. Cosm Atlanta opened in June 2026, and Live Nation has signed on for a new music venue. So when you're standing there now, you're not looking at a rendering. You're seeing the first pieces come together. And when we get to the Civic Center, you'll see how the same logic playing out here in downtown is showing up on a 19-acre site near MARTA that most buyers are overlooking. Now, for buyers, I think this is a trade-off conversation. The stadiums, concerts, restaurants, hotel traffic, and event day crowds are all part of the lifestyle here. That works for a buyer who wants to walk to a Hawks game and be home in 8 minutes. Doesn't work as well for someone who wants a quieter, more residential feel every day of the week. Condos and lofts in downtown and South Downtown can still start in the low to mid 200s for some units, and then move up depending on the building, the finishes, and the exact area. But before you get too attached to any price, you need to understand the HOA health, the building systems, and how that block feels at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, not just when there's an event. Centennial Yards is giving downtown a clearer identity to build around. The buyers who do well here are the ones who want that specific kind of urban energy. If that's not the lifestyle you want, the next project gives you a different way to live in the city. If you're thinking about buying in Intown Atlanta, whether that's downtown, the Beltline neighborhoods, Summerhill, or South Downtown, I can give you a block-by-block read on what each one feels like. My contact info is in the description below, and I'm happy to have that conversation before you start touring listings. Back to the video. The trail that changes everything. Think about this for a second. It's a Saturday morning, you wake up, make coffee, and walk out the door. Not to a parking deck, nor to your car. You're walking straight onto the trail. Within 20 minutes, you've passed a farmer's market, a dog park, and 2 brunch spots with outdoor seating, and you still haven't touched your keys. That is Beltline adjacent living. And in April 2026, that lifestyle reached a part of Atlanta that had been waiting on this connection for a long time. The Southeast Trail opened a new segment from Boulevard to Glenwood Avenue. This new 1.2-mile section from Boulevard to Glenwood Avenue completed the Southeast Trail, which now runs its full 2.5 miles from the Krog Street Tunnel all the way to Boulevard Southeast. So Grant Park, Ormwood Park, Boulevard Heights, and Glenwood Park now have a connected trail link. It's something you can ride this weekend. And each of these neighborhoods has its own feel. Grant Park has historic homes, mature trees, and that slower rhythm of people walking to the park itself or over to Zoo Atlanta. Ormwood Park and Boulevard Heights are more tucked in, and I would say they feel a little more residential, a little less discovered, which matters for certain buyers. Glenwood Park is more planned with a village-style layout that works for people who want walkability built into the neighborhood, not just sitting nearby. On pricing, the range is wide and it depends on the block. Renovated, well-located homes in Grant Park often run from the high 500s into the mid 800s. Ormwood Park and Boulevard Heights can start in the high 300s or 400s for something smaller or simpler, then move into the 600s and 700s for larger or newer homes. Glenwood Park tends to sit on the premium end because of the way it was designed. And if trail access changes the weekend picture, the transit piece coming up changes the weekday one, and together they make a part of Atlanta that people have been underestimating. So the closer you get to the trail, the more you're buying a lifestyle, not just a house. Move-in ready homes near the trail can still be very competitive. Parking gets tighter on weekends and foot traffic picks up. None of that makes it a bad fit, but you need to understand it before the listing photos make you fall in love with the location. And the next area has been sitting at one of the better transit intersections in town for years. Now it's just starting to wake up. The Civic Center, a 19-acre site coming back to life. People drive down Piedmont Avenue past the old Civic Center 4 blocks east of the MARTA station and don't think much about what happens there. For a long time, I thought that made sense. The site was sitting there right on some of the most transit-connected land in Intown Atlanta, and it wasn't doing much. So that is starting to change. Atlanta Housing broke ground on the first phase of the Bois Feuillet Jones Atlanta Civic Center redevelopment in December 2025. The full plan for the 19-acre site includes housing, retail, cultural and performance space, public plazas, office space, a hotel, a grocery store, a school, and a new version of the Performing Arts Center. For a buyer, the important part is the location logic. You have a site near MARTA, close to Old Fourth Ward, and close to some of the stronger walking zones in town. And that site is moving from an empty edge into something active that can change how the surrounding blocks feel. And I would say it can start quietly before the wider market pays attention. And if you're wondering where these early signals come together in one place, that's coming up in South Downtown. Stay with me here. So if you're looking near Old Fourth Ward, near the Civic Center MARTA station, or in the hinge between downtown and the more established in-town neighborhoods, this project should be on your radar. The site is still in transition, so the opportunity is real, but you need patience too. Building condition, block by block walkability, and your comfort with nearby construction all matter before you let one project announcement drive the decision. The bones around here are good. The MARTA axis is real, and the question is whether you're the kind of buyer who wants to be early and whether you have the right guidance to know the difference between a smart early position and getting ahead of yourself. So to understand that, we need to look at the transit picture next. MARTA Rapid A-Line, the transit piece that ties the South together. One of the biggest things buyers are trying to figure out on the south side of Intown Atlanta is how daily life can work without the car being the answer for everything. MARTA launched Phase 1 of the Rapid A-Line on April 18, 2026. Phase 2, expected in fall 2026, will bring all 14 permanent BRT stations fully online with dedicated platforms, level boarding, and off-board fare payment across the whole route. The line runs between downtown and the Terminal South area along Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, Mitchell Street, and Hank Aaron Drive. So it serves 5 Points, Georgia State, the Stadium region, the Georgia Avenue Commercial District, Summerhill, and Peoplestown. If the Beltline helps answer the weekend lifestyle piece, the A-Line starts to answer the weekday piece. You get stadium access, Georgia Avenue restaurants, and a connection back into the MARTA rail network. And that makes this part of the city feel smaller and easier to understand for buyers who are looking at South Downtown or Summerhill and trying to picture daily life without using a car for every trip. Summerhill is a neighborhood I would pay close attention to here. The housing stock is a mix of older homes, renovated homes, and newer townhomes. Buyer opportunities tend to sit in the low 500s, with smaller or less updated homes sitting lower and newer or larger homes sitting higher. And I would say it's not fully repriced for everything coming into this part of the city yet. The A-Line does not make this area car-free overnight, but for buyers who want to be near downtown, the stadiums, and the South Side Trail network without paying old Fourth Ward prices, it changes the math in a way you need to understand before you take the neighborhood off your list. That becomes even clearer in South Downtown, where all these pieces start to come together. South Downtown, old bones, new energy. Walk 1 block of South Downtown on a weekday morning and you can feel 2 versions of Atlanta at the same time. You have buildings that have been there through several chapters of the city, brick storefronts, older facades, and structures that were built to last. And then, inside some of those same buildings, you're starting to see coffee shops, restaurant spaces, and early signs of an area finding its footing again. South Downtown is a cluster of things starting to work together. Centennial Yards is activating the stadium area from the west. MARTA connects at 5 Points. The A-Line runs south, and local partners are working through historic rehab and adaptive reuse across about 16 acres in the historic center of the city. One of those things by itself does not reshape a neighborhood, but together they start to pull South Downtown in the same direction. So this area is for a buyer who wants to be early to the next chapter, but also needs someone who will slow the process down. You need to look at the building, the block, the parking, and the HOA financials before the listing photos decide for you. Older buildings in transition come with real things to review: building systems, association health, walkability at different times of day, what the block feels like at night. I mean, those details matter here. Pricing is still softer in parts of South Downtown. Some condos and lofts can sit in the mid-200s, with renovated spaces and homes near the strongest redevelopment regions moving from there. If a price looks aggressive for what you're seeing, you need to understand why before you assume it's a deal. The upside in South Downtown is real. The due diligence is real too. And right now, those two things sit next to each other in this neighborhood. Sorting through both of them is the job. The city is in the middle of a shift, and the work is knowing which blocks deserve your attention and which ones you should leave alone. If you're seriously thinking about buying in town and want a clear read on how these projects affect the areas you're considering, email me at hello@vcgrealty.com. I've been selling in this market for over 28 years, and I can tell you block by block what the timing looks like right now. The 5 projects we covered today are changing the in-town core, but if you want to understand what's happening across the rest of Atlanta, I linked a video that covers 7 projects shaping the city on a much larger scale. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.